Good afternoon. My name is Nadia Andreanidou, a Programs and Policy Officer at MEDASSET, the Mediterranean Association to Save the Sea Turtles. Welcome to our side event. We have called the event the 3030 Challenge, Science Evidence for Effective Marine Protected Areas. You will repeatedly listen to these words in this event, but I can imagine for the whole conference, and how could we not? Since this is the main commitment that we need to meet in order to address the biodiversity crisis. We also want to thank the Ocean Conference Committee for giving us the opportunity to present our project in such an interactive way, and also all of you for being here. Welcome again. Now, before we go to the panel discussion, I will just say a few words for the project, the LIFE MareNatura project. It has officially launched back in July 2023, and within a time frame of 6 years, we will manage to contribute to the 30% target for the designation of 30% of the sea as protected, with a budget of almost 11 million euros. And with an extensive research of 14 million square kilometers, we will align with global EU and national commitments to designate 30% of the sea as protected, to expand the Natura 2000 network of Greece, and to protect 9 of the most threatened marine species. And now we can walk through the side event. We'll have an insightful discussion with our panelists, who are experts in marine protected areas, through a structured dialogue that it will also include your questions, the questions of the audience. We will try to gain insights and perspectives for marine protected areas per se, for their management, their protection, how they become designated, and also to see the top challenges and top opportunities that this process creates. Our invited panelists are Mr. Ani Zarrouk, Biodiversity Program Coordinator for the Regional Activity Center for Specially Protected Areas of the United Nations Environment Program Mediterranean Action Plan, Mrs. Mercedes Muñoz Cañas, Program Coordinator of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, Mr. Oliver Yates, Head of Marine Program for BirdLife International, and Mr. Panagiotis Kasapidis, Senior Researcher for the Hellenic Center of Marine Research, and also the Coordinator of the LIFE MareNatura project. Our discussion will be moderated by Mrs. Ioli Christopoulou, Partner and Policy Director of the Green Tank, and also the policy expert of our project. We will conclude with a very strong and special commitment on behalf of the LIFE MareNatura project, which will be announced by Mr. Panagiotis Kasapidis. And I think I will now give the floor to Ioli to trigger our discussion.
Thank you, Nadia. Now you can hear me. And welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure for the Green Tank to be co-organizing the side event together with MEDASSET, but also all the LIFE MareNatura partners. In lieu of an introduction that already was made by Nadia, I'll just like to remind us about this challenge of the 30 by 30 target, because we need to designate 30% of our oceans as protected by 2030. We are, as a globe at this stage, as a world, we're at 8% commitment for marine protected areas. In Europe, we're a little bit more. We are at 9%. In Greece, it's 18% of our own maritime waters. So maybe Greece is a little bit ahead. That's a question mark. But anyways, what I wanted to say is that these percentages, this 8% of the globe and of our oceans, is already a reflection of the efforts made. But when did we make these efforts? It's already 24 years, if we look back at 2000, when we had less than 1% of the oceans protected. But now the task is huge, because what it took us in 24 years. Now we have to do it in a much shorter time. We have to practically designate 4 times protected areas in 1/4 of the time. So the task is vast. And for this, we need science. We need data. We need new tools. We need the policies in place so that actually science could guide us, but also for decision makers to listen and to follow up on these commitments. And this is what we will be exploring today. And I don't want to delay our very informative discussion with this excellent panel. So I'll kick off the questions, and I'll start with a quick round. I'd like to ask our panelists to reflect very shortly on what they consider to be their top challenge in meeting this target, and especially in designating and identifying 30% of our oceans as protected. And let's start with you, Anis.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, and thank you again for the invitation on this very relevant panel and the thematic about marine protected areas. It's a good question, in fact, because we need new marine protected area, of course, to reach this 30 by 30 target. But whenever we are setting these objectives, we have to keep in mind the world picture and how ocean is working, how ecosystem species are interacting with each other. It's like a puzzle, and within this puzzle we need to think how MPAs fit on it and how more MPAs can be more efficient. To come back to the challenges we are facing now to the 30 by 30, you just stated that in the last status in 2020, we are less than 9% of MPAs in the Mediterranean region, with several gaps between north and southern Mediterranean coastal area. So this is a big challenge, but there are very good willing by all the contracting parties to make more marine protected areas. But it's not just putting new marine protected areas, it's more than that. We have to ensure that existing marine protected areas are well and effectively managed. We have to ensure that new marine protected areas will be the same. So this is a very big challenge. It's not just 30% protected. It's 30% protected for the world region. So it's, as you stated, some countries are ahead, some have still work to do, but we need to collaborate for this. We need to reach it all together. So this is how it should be working. The 30 by 30 is challenging, but achievable. Maybe not only MPAs, that's why we need also to think about creating OECMs now in the Mediterranean. And we will be starting putting some selection criteria. It's a huge work too, but it's feasible. So I will stop here, but we can continue later. Thank you.
Excellent. Mercedes, what is your top challenge
My
for
top
meeting
challenge.
the 30 by 30 target?
Well, actually, Anis was saying it correctly, but I think that one of the things that we have to think of is we're rushing. We do need to get to this 30% in 6 years, but we cannot forget that these actions that we have to take, it has to be knowledge-based. So we need to, the challenge is how to include this knowledge in this action that we have to take in order to get the objectives very targeted, saying, I am doing actions, but then make sure that these are the best actions that we can take. Another thing will be like the coordination of these multiple jurisdictions and these hard MPAs. You know, there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of jurisdictions for an MPA, and we need to make sure that there's a coordination. So MPAs know, like, they have to do. And if I have to give a third one, it would be the activities that are inside the MPAs and what would be the level of these activities. So you can do a lot of things in an MPA, but you have to decide which ones do you want to take, what would be the risk of taking some of them out, and of course what would be the level of the ones that you authorize, like to which level are you going to allow, I don't know, fisheries inside the MPA. So those three.
Thank you. And as you can see, I'm asking for one top challenge, but nobody can limit it to one.
I can't, I'm sorry. I had just three.
so Oli, your turn to try.
Okay, I shall try to limit it to just one. Thank you for having me for a start. It's a real pleasure to be here, and indeed a real honor to be here. I think the top challenge for me would be that as humans, we are fixated on this target. You know, we're very good at identifying a target and then doing our utmost to reach that target. But we shouldn't be distracted by the 30% so much. Yes, we want to achieve that, but we need to achieve that in the most appropriate areas. And I think that is the biggest challenge. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there in the marine space that we can designate. But are we doing the right thing to designate something where there is no activity because it's no conflict? I think the challenge for all of us here this week is to try and ensure that we are representing the ecosystem services and function, which is also part of Target 3. So that is a huge challenge, and we're not going to do that alone. So collaboration would be my second one, if I could, to do that properly. Thank you.
You got it in. Panayoti, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for being here in this event. As coordinator of the project, I can say, and of course I agree with the previous speakers, that maybe first the biggest challenge is to collect good data, good biological data, to have reliable data, and then to apply proper procedures to designate MPAs, protected areas. So this is, I think, the first challenge, and that means to take into account human activity, stakeholders, policymakers, government. So this is also very important. And then, of course, there are other challenges that can come. Of course, you have the MPAs in place. They should be properly protected, which is the biggest, I think, challenge after all. These MPAs should be connected, the connectivity between MPAs, so that they can serve, as Oliver said, you know, to provide ecosystem services. And then we have another parameter, which we are not well aware at the moment, climate change. So climate change may change the data. The ecosystems are changing. So what we know now and what we'll study now and we designate now may not be enough in a few years, because ecosystems, species, distribution may move, things will change. So this is, I think, another big challenge for the future.
Thank you very much. Already, I think we've collected a lot of insight, but I would like to follow up a question to you, Mercedes, because you also spoke the first challenge on knowledge. And I'm thinking, what new science or new approaches or new tools, new methodologies do we need in order to ensure the proper identification? And do you see distinctions between protected areas in terrestrial and marine protected areas?
Well, I think that sometimes we do want to go to new, and there are many tools already available that we can use, and there is no need to create more. We just need to use the ones that are there. So there are many that are for monitoring or doing the inventory of what you have in the marine protected areas. There is spatial planning out there. So let's use the spatial planning to delimitate buffer zones, to understand where are the habitats that we want to protect. If I had to say new ones, maybe the socioeconomic part of how these MPAs are going to affect negative and positive to the people that are there, I would increase maybe in looking for this type of methodologies. But I mean, I can give you some of the ones that we use in IUCN, like the green list for seeing how well is governed and managed an area. We have the STAR, which is just looking into these investments and how this is being useful for habitats and the species endangered. We do have the key biodiversity areas, for example, that delimitate again where are the areas that we should protect, just looking around and see where are the areas that should be, we should focus the most. And there is a platform that is called Panorama, for example, where you have best practices that you can copy, or I mean, I really like when they're good ideas, I reproduce them in other areas instead of saying copy. But I would just suggest that there are many things there. I just get that we're just missing the way of getting them and understanding how to apply them for what we're doing. So no new.
That will gain us a lot of time too.
I think so too, yeah.
I don't know if some of the people that are trying to get in would like to step in here. And We don't have enough chairs, but you can stand also on the other side so that you can hear a little bit more. So maybe we have some tools already available. And I'll ask this question to Olli on how tools that are related to the conservation of species, and I'm thinking, of course, seabirds, since you come from BirdLife, how can these be helpful in identifying the protected areas that we need to designate by 2030? Maybe you have some insights to give us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for directing me toward the seabirds as well. That is, BirdLife have been working on this for a long time. I agree with Mercedes. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, have so many new tools when we have some very good ones that are available. The seabirds are helpful because they're a great indicator of where other biodiversity is also present. So I have a terrible confession to make as a member of BirdLife International that I'm not a birder, but I was interested in cephalopods and deep-sea fisheries and squid more than anything. But whilst I was working on squid boats, I could see seabirds everywhere around these boats. And it's like, wow, this is incredibly visible. You know, this is a wonderful opportunity to help us see beneath the water by looking at where those very visible, large and very trackable predators are going. And so they do make perfect indicators of broader biodiversity. You cannot see the seamount under the water, but you can very quickly see that multiple seabirds from different breeding locations are heading to that seamount because they're eating salps and myctophids, and they're feeding on that biodiversity that's under the water, which is attracting the tuna and the sea lions and the other taxa that we're also very much interested in. So seabirds are a brilliant indicator for this, and there has been very good criteria developed through key biodiversity areas and the marine important bird and biodiversity areas. And that's quite technical to put together and to develop, but it's very well understood, very well known. And BirdLife has put together a tractor KBA toolkit, or a marine megafauna toolkit, which facilitates putting all of that data that's already out there into nice, neat polygons that will help inform the decision makers around the world when they're trying to reach those targets. So I would encourage people to think about using those tractor KBA type tools and putting them into practice. The seabird tracking database that we use extensively is thanks to an amazing collaboration from over 250 researchers all around the world that put their data collaboratively into this single database. There's now, I think I'm right in saying, over 180 million data points in that. So when you look at them all together, the world's oceans globally look like this incredible rainbow of color, which is amazing. And so then making order of that kind of fantastical chaos is what those toolkits do. And I think that's a real opportunity when you're looking to design new areas to incorporate that, because KBA is not just seabird, but seabird is a really helpful and important component. And in recent years, we've seen things like the designation of the North Atlantic Current and Evelynov Sea Basin MPA in the North Atlantic, but also many of the large marine protected areas are dependent on a lot of seabird data going into that design and therefore the designation of those sites. So I would encourage consideration of that.
Thank you, Olli. This was very insightful, because you build also on what Mercedes said on having tools and how do we apply them. And I think Anisi would agree that the new technology, the tools that we have are all appropriate, but maybe we need also institutions and we need the policies in place to help us designate the new protected areas and to ensure not only the designation, but as you already said, the effective management, and to do this all on time. So the question to you is, now that we have the Kunming-Montreal agreement in place, but we also have pre-existing agreements, pre-existing laws, is the institutional framework sufficient, or maybe that needs some adjustments? What do you think?
It's a very good question, and always it's tricky to discuss policy things, because people will say sometimes it's enough what we did. Sometimes people know it's not absolutely enough. We need to still working. So the implementation and how to go from science to policy is very, very crucial and important. Now, science-based policy decisions are absolutely needed, in particular for MPAs. So let's talk first of what we did, because we have this global framework and the goals set at global level. And what we succeed to do, at least in the Mediterranean region, that we succeed to get all the contracting parties of the Barcelona Convention to agree on commitments, on agreements, and at COP22, we published the post-2020 sub-bio strategic action program for the whole sector of marine and coastal area, but we also have a strategy for the Mediterranean for marine protected areas and OECMs. So countries agreed on how to proceed. There are goals to 2030 and beyond, and there are activities on how to reach it. This is very important. And even the process, how this was done, absolutely science was there, but countries were discussing. It was a bottom-up approach. They start discussing priorities, issues faced by each countries. They start discussing later on sub-regional issues and objectives, and then they ended up by a regional commitment altogether. It's not easy, but we need to do it, because this is how it works. I mean, there are scientists putting us the alarm. There are several stakeholders that need to make benefit from ocean and the resources. And we have also institutions that can help translating the action to policy level and come back also to assess if this policy level are good. Because whenever you are set a policy, you have to keep in mind that you should be always be able to adapt it. It takes time, yes, but our decision should be always to the long term. If we take a decision for today, the impact is not immediate. If we are fortunate, it will be, but we should always think about the long term of our decision. And this is how institutions are working, and collaboration, again, as it was highlighted by colleagues, is absolutely needed. Not only environmental organizations, but fisheries organizations, NGOs, all these people have to work together. So I have to say this because this policy aspect is absolutely needed, and it's complementary to all what is happening at science level, at fishery level, at all the sectors of the Mediterranean region. Thank you.
I think it's a complete circle and evolution. Just in case somebody is not clear, I'd just like you to tell us 2 words about the OCMs, just to define them, because it's not a term that maybe everybody is very familiar with.
Yes.
So maybe you could just say 2 words about it.
OECM is quite new, even at worldwide, is other effective area-based management tools. It could be complementary to marine protected area. It's different. We have to set criteria on how this could be happening in the Mediterranean. We don't have any OECM right now in the Med, but it could be soon happening here. Fisheries restricted area could be a good candidate, just to give this as an example. So we need areas well managed, where there are some measures for protection, but also for the right use of the system.
Thank you. I just wanted to have this clarification because we mostly talk about the marine protected areas, and this is the main target, but we need to keep in mind that we do have also additional measures, additional institutions that can help us in meeting the large biodiversity crisis. So every effort possible in order to reverse the very alarming trends. So Panayoti, I come to you and our LIFE MareNatura project because we have heard already about the science, the different tools, we've heard about the policy, and as a project we're trying to help for Greece and maybe Italy, but particularly Greece to respond to the 3030 challenge. From what you've heard so far, what can we integrate? How will we be working in this project to meet the target?
I think we integrate most of what has been said because this is a quite multifaceted project that incorporates many actions apart from using novel technologies to collect biological data or supplying systematic conservation planning for the designation of the areas that will be proposed for inclusion in the N2K network policy, and also to, which is very important, to interact with stakeholders and the managers and the competent authorities. And actually, the main authority for the management of protected areas in Greece, NECCA, is one of the main beneficiaries of the project, so it's very important that we work together. And there are also other things that I will also say later, not to repeat.
Okay, so now after this first round, we would like also to have your questions to our panel. If you have any, what I will ask you is that the question needs to be a question. So that means it ends with a question mark. And it please to be addressed to one of the panelists. We don't have the time. I think you've already realized that this conference, everything goes quite fast. So we want to make sure that we have time for a few questions. So address the question to one of the panelists and with a question mark at the end. Yes, please. And
Hi.
please introduce yourself too.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Pamela. I'm part of an NGO called Mujeres, Niñas y Biodiversidad, Women, Girls, and Biodiversity. And I used to work with the Mexican government and with a marine protected area called Arrecife Alacranes, so Scorpion Reef, kind of. And we were trying to include this reef into the IUCN Green List. So we're facing a huge problem because one part is that the IUCN now involves a huge amount of citizen involvement. I mean, they have this gender interaction, the gender include, that's something so great, but we didn't have it. We didn't have it like this kind of information, and don't know how to improve that. And the second is that the citizens needs to get involved also, but most of the marine protected areas were far away. So we're facing this problem, how to go, all the citizens can go to the area, but how can we just get this knowledge closer? And I'm not sure if you're having like a new tools for the governments to achieve this kind of certification, for example, and also the budget, because it's tons of science involved on it, and when we were exploring this opportunity, well, it was hard.
I think the question was clearly to Mercedes. So if you could,
sorry, it's obviously for Mercedes.
Don't worry. So I'm assuming you're talking about the green list, maybe?
Yes, I think the green list, and what are the different tools available to countries or protected area managers in order to get on.
So actually, the green list is an assessment that looks into what is missing and provides you some of the resources and can provide you information on how to improve it. So we can try to see like what is exactly the problem there, because the green lists do adapt depending of where they are. So you have like a group in Spain and they adapt to the circumstances of Spain, or in the area that you are. So it's just a matter of understanding of what is missing and what do you think you have to include. But we can discuss it later because I know that she's not going to allow us to have this interaction. And I just have to mention that we have the Act 30, that it's IUCN, and it is inclusive. We're including the indigenous people and local communities, and it's a new, how do you say it? I'm sorry,
Participatory?
like a program. It's not a program, but the word's not coming.
Project?
And I see the 26,
Initiative?
and I'm getting very nervous. But it's an act that actually what it's trying to say is to bring all the knowledge of the indigenous people and local communities, to not forget them when we're creating these marine protected areas and we're trying to reach this 30 by 30. So there are things out there. Let's discuss when this finishes. But I think the Green List could support the work that you're doing. I just need to understand what was missing and why you didn't move it forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Mercedes. Also, the green list is very high standards. So
It is
quite
a very
difficult to get
high-
that green star
I
on your
agree.
protected area. You
I
really
agree.
need to have not only just a designation, but fully and very effective
I agree.
management. So it's keeping the
But
standards
the good thing, and
high.
I say it really quick, is if you go through it, you understand what are the things that you're missing, which are the things that you can improve. So maybe you don't have the certificate, but you understand what is the path
And
that you
this
have
is-
to go to reach to it.
This is why it's important, because you know where you need to get
Exactly.
to. So this is great. So let's have another question. I see in the back. Back.
Hi, my name is Tassos Dimalexis. I'm working in the LIFE project, and it was very nice what we heard so far. I just wanted to ask Oliver if he can provide us a concrete example of a successful project which combines good data with all these policy issues that are needed for a good outcome for a network of MPAs. I know that BirdLife and other organizations, but BirdLife in particular, has done a lot of work in gathering data and using this data for the protection of MPAs.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's a great question, isn't it? There are a lot of good examples out there. I may tend to lean toward the bird influenced ones, if that's possible. I think I would mention Spain and Portugal have made great progress of identifying the important marine bird and biodiversity areas, translating that through into the special protected areas, and meeting some of their obligations under the Natura 2000. So I think that's a really nice link between the science and into the policy. I would also mention Tristan da Cunha, which is an overseas territory of the United Kingdom. Fantastic tracking data was put towards that design and designation just a couple of years ago, and that led to great changes. And I think when you're looking for examples where we're not just making a relatively easy choice, I think the local community had some very tough questions to answer about what their ambition was and what that would mean in terms of changing, if I just very openly say, changing fishing and removing some fishing effort from that place. And I think that was really important, a difficult decision to take, but really influential. So I think there's some amazing examples out there based on good science, underpinned by very strong policy, with effective management decisions taken that are immediately seeing consequences. So I think, yeah, I would pick those ones.
So we have something to look at and to find out more. I had asked the gentleman here to be the next one.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm Alain Desbois from NECCA Technologies. We are a wave-powered desalination solution based in Canada. We're looking to see how we can help regenerate and protect marine ecosystems with our systems and the design, and how we can integrate that into a marine protected area. So sorry for my ignorance. We're new to this and validating a few elements, but two questions. The first question is about the data. I'd like to understand better where the data gaps are in terms of monitoring and evaluating the performance of marine MPAs. And the other question is about how to, with the lights of the climate change and defining the baseline and looking at how the performance goes, what's the complexity, or what are the best practices in defining these baselines in the concepts and designing these MPAs?
I think we have two questions, and I think one is maybe for the two of you, and the second one for...
In the first question on data gaps, I mean, they're everywhere, aren't they? I mean, I think in my experience of trying to look at the design of marine protected areas, one of the rules of thumb has been that you can never have enough data. But the thing that is always followed very closely by that is that you cannot wait until you have enough data to make decisions. We don't have that, we're not lucky enough to have that time frame if we're to meet these targets. So data gaps are all around us. I think for me, one of the most important ones are what is happening out of sight. So the current activities. We have lots of environmental data which we can access from remote sensing and from that kind of tracking data we were talking about previously. But we don't have as much information often from the actual activities that are happening in the water. And that is really where I think there needs to be very immediate, very strong improvements so that it is no longer out of sight, because it can't be brought into the decision-making process if that information doesn't exist. So we need to get better at that. I can't remember the second question, but someone else is going to answer that.
I can try also to provide you with some answers, because you highlighted a very important point on how data could be used and how data are used. Well, I completely agree. Sometimes you don't have time to get more data. You have to act quickly. But even at policy level, this is also something considered. I mean, precautionary approach is usually there. You have to do something and later on collect data and maybe do something else different. But we forget to say something. You mentioned you are working, if I'm not wrong, on wave power and how it could be integrated in MPAs or in other regions. Now there is this new challenge of digital twin of the ocean, which is also something, these digital tools now are there. Of course, we need data because they are mainly based on models to have this somehow some prediction on how this activity, it could be even fish farms, fit or not in there. So for this, absolutely data is needed, but from both sides. I mean, from the energy side, how this energy is working, how it's benefit to people, but also is not harming the environment. But at the same time, we need data from the MPAs, and data are made available. At least for the Mediterranean region, we have a platform for all the Mediterranean MPAs where data are there. They are open source. You can consult them. But it's also important to say, look, you are still missing this kind of data because we need them in our models. We need in our design of these new tools. So it's a collaborative approach at the end. But we cannot say, no, this cannot be in an MPA without going and analyze the situation. Every single MPA is almost a case study. There is no similar MPAs. There are similarities, but everyone could be completely different from the others, but they should be working as a network. So it's a cumulative effect of MPAs, what we are talking about, and activity could be there. So we are not only putting no-take zones or very closed area. It should be dynamic area, and this is how ocean and seas are always working. So I hope this provides you with some answer.
By exception to my rule, would you like to comment on something, Mercedes?
Me?
Yes.
No, about data. I was even thinking, like, when you think about all the protected areas that are in the Mediterranean, 97% belong to Europe. That doesn't mean maybe that we don't have data on the other side. It's just that we didn't gather it in order to decide. And there are many things happening, right? So if I have to add something to what it was said, which was very well explained, I would say that sometimes we miss the part of we do have the data, but we forget how to structure it and use it in a way to define MPAs where we can create like a network of MPAs, which is very needed in the Mediterranean. We do areas that have a lot of MPAs, but then isolated areas that don't link. So, you know, as it was saying, the sea, the Mediterranean Sea is part of it. We just have one ocean, right? So you cannot protect one area and then forget the rest. What are they, you know, they move some of the animals, so you need to do this networking. And yeah, I would say that.
You had a question.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm with Protected Seas, and we have a database of marine protected areas and other managed areas with a particular focus on the human activity regulations that apply. It's a global database, and we completed the global review just in 2022. And I do the legal research, so over the years I've noticed, probably no surprise to anybody in the room, but especially you, that there are many areas designated without any bite. So they're paper parks, or whatever you want to call them. Oliver, you mentioned the Natura 2000 sites as a prime example, but it exists everywhere. So I direct this question at you, but really everybody on the panel probably can answer. Do you have any insight into, or intel, I guess, into whether the 30 by 30 initiatives are spurring a little bit more action by way of management plans being developed or updated. Oftentimes we run into management plans that ran out in 2015 or 2020. We don't know if they still apply or if they're expired, or anything happening in the Natura 2000 areas that don't have any underlying national designation that give them any kind of regulation on human activity. Yeah, I'm just interested in that.
Thank you. This is a very opportune question also for those that are in Greece, as we are currently just waiting for the past years for the designation, proper designation and the elaboration of the management plans. We know which are the Natura 2000 sites, but we don't, and this is just the terrestrial. We haven't even touched the marine areas. So, Oli, I think the question is to you, but maybe we'll just give the opportunity to the whole panel to comment on this question, and then we'll wrap it up slowly.
It's a fantastic question. It is the thing that we will all collectively have to grapple with. I think, to be concise, best practice is that the designation goes hand in hand with a management plan and an identification of the resources that is going to underpin that management plan. But what is quite often missed is that there is the legal framework that goes alongside that. So those three things, 4 if you include the funding, should be delivered at the time of designation. I mean, quite often there's 10 years between one and the other, and then a lot more time before anything else. So you're absolutely right, we are not in a perfect situation, but it is our collective responsibility to make that pressure felt for those that are about to declare these things. So yeah, fantastic question.
That was a very complete answer. So I don't know what we have to add, but
I
go ahead, Mercedes.
Adding to that, that maybe let us think about like this rush of getting to the 30%, forgetting the ones that are already there and we're not, they're just there. So maybe we do need to, for example, in the south part of the Mediterranean, there are MPAs, and we want to create more, but it's like, wait, let's secure these ones, like make sure that these ones are going the way they have to do, and then let's think about more. So I will come, he just explained everything, but adding to that, let's reflect on this part too. Like, let's take seriously the one, we did a lot of work already, so let's make sure that these ones are put in place correctly, and then let's add.
Yes. No, thank you. You already provided very, very well information, but I will come back to the Mediterranean context because I assume we have a very particular case study, if you can call it like this. In the Med, we have a label we call SPAMIs, and by the way, today we start celebrating the SPAMI Day for the whole month, but SPAMI are special protected area for Mediterranean importance. And at SPARAC, we have the duty also for the evaluation of the SPAMIs. SPAMIs are like 5-star MPAs, but every 4 years we have this evaluation process. Just for this biennium, we have 25 SPAMIs to be evaluated in 11 countries. So it's effective management that is needed by 2030. It's not only creating MPAs. But let me give you an information from our experience for several years, even myself, because I was a marine protected area manager for years. And we can have MPAs we call paper parks. With policy, everything is right. But we discovered that we can even have MPAs with no papers, no policy, nothing. But because there are NGOs working there and good willing, MPAs is working. So policy is just there to help. But policies, again, is absolutely needed because whenever you are facing any issue, it's the only way, to make people to agree. So this is how we do. And best practices is quite important. This is why we are making MPAs manager working in a network. We are even start a twinning program between MPAs manager, but we are expanding this not only to MPA manager, but also to decision makers, to country, to discuss together. This is what's happening there. This is our issues, how we can collaborate, how we can benefit. And it's working south-north, north-south. Absolutely, because in every country, you have a very good and bad experience every time. Sometimes worse experiences are good to share why we didn't succeed. It's even better than best practice, everything, worse and bad. So this is something we count on it on 2030. and it will be very good to achieve it. And I think I'm quite optimistic, let's say, on this.
As I become aware of time, we don't have any more for discussion, because actually, and before asking Panagiotis to maybe share some concluding thoughts, I'd like to ask each one of you, again, in a very short time, and let's see if we can identify one top opportunity now. We talk about the challenges, so let's see about what are the opportunities that come with the new target. So Panagiotis, maybe you want to start and then pass it on.
Yes, I think the opportunities, I think the situation now is quite mature. So there are a lot of data, a lot of policy, a lot of experience from all these actions. And also now we have a lot of pressure to exploit more the marine environment. This is something very important now, a new, let's say, point in the whole discussion. So especially in the Mediterranean now, the government's press for offshore wind farms, for drilling in areas around Greece, which also are important marine mammal areas. You mentioned this wave, which is also will be, I don't know what will be the impact in the environment, maybe offshore fish farms, which are also in plants, platforms, and so on. So we see that there's a lot of pressure. So also there's a lot of need to, to give advice. Of course, these actions cannot happen if there's not any environmental studies in place. So I think the governments, they will have to consult the experts, and so maybe this can go hand by hand. Of course, the best would be to have first the studies and the plans and the MPAs, and then try to combine with the new activities. But now I think this is the challenge, to try to, to work hand by hand and achieve all these targets in the next few years.
See, I ask for an opportunity, they give me a challenge. What can I do?
I think it's an opportunity now.
I can reverse everything.
Okay, so I'll try to be short in terms of opportunities. The first that came into my mind is absolutely collaboration and working together. We saw how we can reach quickly and more effective way whenever we start collaboration. I'm saying collaboration, it's everyone. I mean, all the stakeholders, organizations, NGOs, everyone who are working for all the sectors, even within the same country, all the ministries together. This is what we need. And the other opportunity is that we saw now how science-based decision-making, how science-based mitigation measures are quite useful. Whenever we give time to science and to provide science with tools and make scientists also collaborating with stakeholders, with fishers, with tourism activities, and discussing together, not only making science for science, the results are amazing. So this is, for me, the two opportunities we have right now to work together to reach this objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes.
So, well, yeah, I mean, I will look for another one, but I think it's the willingness right now. And I mean, we do have a global biodiversity framework and a post-2020 global biodiversity framework there. So there is a willingness, global level, national level, international level. I mean, everywhere, everyone wants to reach and protect. And we do have to seize, this the Act 30 that I said of IUCN, this global biodiversity framework, and put it into the Mediterranean, which exists, the post-2020 SAP-Bio, or the MPA, what is that, the 2030 roadmap for MPAs. We do have things, and we do have people that wants to do it in very different levels. So let's do coordinate, let's do work together, and let's seize the opportunity that all these commitments are providing us.
Thank you very much, Mercedes. That was really very optimistic.
It's difficult to build on that. So I think the other one that I would mention would be the funding. I think from the past 20-odd years of working in the marine space was always just bemoaning. There's no funding, we can't do this, it's impossible because there's not enough grants out there, and the grants that do exist don't help us do the things that we want to do in our specific little weird niche that we might have. Well, now, thanks to what you've just been talking about, Mercedes, the interest is there, and that is being followed up by much greater funds. So the SDG, the life underwater is fantastically underfunded, but it seems that with the announcements and the commitments coming, that there is finally some support for those of us working in marine space. So speak to those funders out there this week. This is a great opportunity for everybody, I think.
Thank you very much. And we are at the end of the discussion, and I want to thank very much our panelists for their insights and their knowledge and the generosity with which they shared it with us. But it's not the end of our side event quite yet, as I'd like to ask Panagiotis Kasapidis, who is, as we said, the senior researcher at the Hellenic Center for Marine Research here in Greece, but also is the project coordinator of the LIFE MareNatura project, to make a very special announcement in the form of a commitment that we make within this 2024 Our Ocean Conference on behalf of the LIFE MareNatura project, all of its partners and its policy experts, to share it with all of us and to have it, of course, on record. So Panagiotis, share the news.
Thank you very much, Ioli. Just give me a moment. So this is the announcement of LIFE MareNatura commitment. The commitment is made on behalf of the LIFE MareNatura partners and its policy expert, who pledged to contribute to the implementation of Greece's 2030 biodiversity target on the designation of 30% of Greece's marine waters as marine protected areas by 2029. So how will LIFE MareNatura make this contribution? The LIFE MareNatura project is the largest European project for the conservation of marine biodiversity ever to be implemented in Greece. The approach the project applies is multifaceted and centers around the need to mitigate the threats of 9 vulnerable and threatened species of seabirds, marine turtles, and marine mammals at the Aegean, Ionian, and the South Adriatic seas. The project will fill knowledge gaps on the presence of the target species, mostly in marine offshore areas, beyond the coastal waters where research has been focused to date. In particular, extensive field surveys will be conducted to collect data on the migration routes, feeding grounds, and aggregation areas of these species, using state-of-the-art techniques like telemetry, aerial, boat, radar, bioacoustics, and even environmental DNA surveys. This new knowledge will formulate a scientifically documented list of biodiversity hotspots for the conservation of the target species within the Greek territorial waters and the Greek exclusive economic zone. The project will also map important economic activities such as fisheries, tourism, energy production, and marine traffic that affect the target species, and by applying systematic conservation planning, will identify candidate areas to be included in the Greek Marine Natura 2000 network. In addition, the project will invest in capacity building of the competent authorities to effectively manage marine protected areas after the end of the project. To this aim, the project has established a marine conservation school to train managers, decision makers, and stakeholders, and a marine conservation task force team by the competent authority, NECCA. It will also develop and operate an integrated monitoring and early warning system for the regular assessment of the conservation status of the priority species. Last but not least, the project is implementing policy action, stakeholder engagement and public awareness, communication activities, and networking with experts and stakeholders. The LIFE MareNatura project will cover an extensive marine area of around 48,000 square kilometers, spanning across the Aegean, the Ionian, and the South Adriatic seas, and the project aims to identify at least 30 new marine biodiversity hotspots and proposed at least 20 new areas for inclusion in the Greek Natura 2000 network. The project kicked off in July 2023 and will apply its multifaceted approach for 6 years, concluded in 2029. By this deadline, the Ministry of Environment and Energy has already committed, with the support letter they provided, to fully designate new Marine Natura 2000 sites based on the proposals of the LIFE MareNatura project. So who will implement this project? The LIFE MareNatura Consortium consists of 12 institutions and organizations under the coordination of the Hellenic Center for Marine Research, or HCMR. These partners are the Natural Environment and Climate Change Organization, NECCA, which is Greece's national authority responsible for the management of protected areas. There are 4 more academic and research institutions: the University of the Aegean, the Natural History Museum of Crete of the University of Crete, the National Observatory of Athens, and the Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research, ISRPA. There are also 4 NGOs, the Hellenic Ornithological Society, the Hellenic Society for the Study and Protection of the Monk Seal, MOM, the ARCHELON, the Sea Turtle Protection Society of Greece, and the Mediterranean Association to Save the Sea Turtles, MEDASSET. And finally, there are also 2 private companies, the Nature Conservation Consultants and the Waterproof Marine Consultancy and Services. We also have the environmental think tank, the Green Tank, as the project policy specialist advisor. So what is the financial commitment for this project? The project has a total budget of around 10.7 million euros. It is co-financed by the European Union via LIFE project by 75%, that is about 8 million euros. The AG Leventis Foundation, which will provide 150,000 euros to the University of Crete. NECCA will fully cover its own contribution. And then we expect that the Ministry of Environment and Energy has agreed to contribute with the remaining co-financing. So the overall impact is that through the designation of new MPAs and the expansion of Greece's Natura 2000 network, the LIFE MareNatura project will contribute to the implementation of global, EU, and national commitments for the designation of 30% of the sea as protected. So this is in accordance with the Target 3 of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework for 2030, the Target 1 of the 2030 EU Biodiversity Strategy, and the Article 174 of Greece's Law 5037 of 2023, as well as the provisions of the Athens Declaration on Climate Change and the Environment in the Mediterranean, and also in new commitments we expect that Greece will announce during this conference. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Panayoti. Congratulations. We are truly thrilled that Greece has this unique consortium of partners and this fantastic project with enthusiasm and skill to meet the targets. Thanks again to our panelists for this very insightful discussion and to all of you for being a fantastic audience. Very exciting news, and enjoy the conference. Thank you for being with us.